If you look closely at the great white pillars of evolution that have reigned supreme for nearly a century, you will find that there are some deepening cracks starting to show. For a long time, the theory of evolution has held sway over the minds of most people. The evolutionist has convinced people that they have it all figured out and under control. They want you to think that they totally understand how evolution works, but it's just way too complicated for someone like you. So you just need to stay out of the kitchen and trust them. Well, I'm here to tell you that you have one thing going for you that they don't: common sense. Common sense is what the evolutionist fears the most. I'm going to lay out 8 rational and reasonable objections to evolution. And you don't need a PhD to see the truth in them. You just need a little common sense. Common sense and evolution are going to go head to head in this video, and we'll see who the winner is. Round 1. Design demands a designer. Evolutionists hate this argument. They think it's so stupid. But that's because they know it's actually the strongest of all the arguments against evolution. It's so simple. Just a little common sense is required. You're walking along the beach one evening. You find a watch laying on the beach. You say, "Gee, I guess there must have been a storm last night. It blew all these sand grains around and made this watch." Kind of funny, right? No, you instantly know that it is a man-made object, made by someone with a lot of skill and intelligence. Do you know how much more complex your brain is than that watch? Should I bring up the complexity of the eye? Darwin did. The idea of evolution creating the eye kind of shook him up. Enough said. Design demands a designer. 1 down. Round 2. Evolution does not and cannot answer this question. Where did life come from? Life only comes from life. Life does not come from inanimate matter, and it does not come from dead chemicals. Evolution, by definition, requires life. Non-living chemicals do not evolve. Scientists have been looking for ways that this could happen for decades because they know it is essential to sustaining the whole evolutionary shrine. But they have no answer for the problem, and they never will. Life only comes from life. I learned that in 1st grade. And it's still true. Let's move on. Round 3. Why evolve? So once again, let's back up and look at the big picture. The evolution train is supposed to be traveling in one direction. It's supposed to be moving from a state of less survivability to a state of greater survivability. That's supposedly the engine that drives evolution. But is that really what happens? Let's go back to the beginning. According to evolution, what were the first living things like? Well, according to them, these early creatures must have been in a state of poor survivability. After all, they were desperately trying to catch that evolution train that gets them to a place of greater survivability. But let's take a look at these first life forms as they've been described by the evolutionists themselves. Known as extremophiles, survived extreme heat, primarily by evolving specialized structural adaptations. Because the Earth was covered in hot oceans and hydrothermal vents, these organisms thrived by developing rigid cell membranes, robust protein structures, and unique genetic repair mechanisms. Then, according to the evolutionist timetable, millions of years later, the Earth virtually froze over, And once again, the microbials were the survivors. These tiny life forms were the most resilient creatures to ever live on this planet. So my question is simple. If these early life forms had such amazing ability to survive, why did they need to evolve at all? Once again, a little common sense will go a long way. Round 4. Only mind creates information. In 1953, James Watson and Francis Crick discovered the double helix structure of DNA. Their work and the work of others before them opened a door of knowledge as to how all biology is built and controlled by information. It became clear that everything that happens in an organism is caused and controlled by information. All of the design and structure found in every cell of every living thing on Earth depends on information. This information, found in the code of the DNA, is analogous to the code of a computer. This code orchestrates everything that our bodies do, how they are formed, and how they work. It is called the language of life. When this all came to light, it presented evolution with a monumental problem. Everyone knows that only mind can create information. It is clear that life is not controlled and guided by blind mutations. It is controlled and guided by clear and specific instructions in the DNA. Round 5. Interconnected biological systems. If evolution is based on just blind random mutations, how do we account for the countless interdependencies in every ecosystem around the world? For example, bees get their nectar from flowers, while the flowers themselves thrive by the spreading of pollen. Almost everything in nature is connected. Symbiotic relationships, food webs, the water cycle, the carbon-oxygen cycle, the nitrogen cycle. Did you know that monarch butterflies only lay their eggs on the milkweed plant? Many marine animals depend on the timing of the tides. All life exists in a fragile balance in our world, and everything is intricately connected. If everything is evolving in its own separate and blind little world based on random chance, how can we explain our interconnected world? How can we explain that everything just happened to evolve at the right time and in the right way to support this interconnectivity? Just a little common sense clears things up. Round 6. Bisexual reproduction. Try to imagine how evolution could achieve bisexual reproduction. According to evolution, life started out with simple, single-celled creatures that just reproduced asexually. But that means that at some point, some creatures had to transition from asexual to bisexual reproduction. Try to imagine how this could have happened. Both male and female organisms would have to evolve separately and simultaneously. Keep in mind, the anatomy required for bisexual reproduction is very complex. Think of all the organs and all the chemistry that would be involved. Both male and female organisms would have to evolve on totally separate paths. Neither knows anything about the evolutionary processes going on in the other. If these evolutionary processes are unguided, how do they know how to evolve in such a way that is complementary to the opposite sex? And if that's not mind-boggling enough, keep in mind that up until the time when both of these creatures are developmentally complete, these creatures must continue to reproduce asexually. Try to imagine that. Round 7. Irreducible complexity. This concept is one of the most devastating to the whole evolutionary institution. I'll be brief. The principle simply says that unless a biological organ or system of any kind is fully assembled, it is of no use to that organism. It simply won't work. Take, for example, an organ or organelle that is supposedly under evolutionary development in a creature. In its final form, it will be made up of multiple interdependent parts. But, according to evolution, that doesn't happen all at once. Instead, it comes into being in small, incremental stages over vast periods of time. My question is, at what point is this new organ beneficial to the creature? The original mutation that started the whole process is called a beneficial mutation. So the benefits are at work from start to finish, right? Well, no. Turns out that the principle of irreducible complexity tells us that until the organ is fully developed and functional, the organ is of absolutely no value whatsoever to that creature. As a matter of fact, it would be a distinct liability. So with no beneficial advantage going on, what is driving the evolutionary process forward? Again, just a little common sense kills the evolutionary giant. God bless and keep believing.